Hi everybody, I am Peter Czerkowski, creator of the Story Engine deck, and today I'm going to be unboxing with you the digital print sample of the new deck of worlds, as well as the new expansions and a couple other cool add-ons from the Kickstarter. This is a physical copy that gets printed through a digital quality printer so that we can take a look at how all of the components fit together. It's not the full quality industrial offset style printing yet, so the print quality is actually going to improve between this version and the final version that you'll receive. I think it's time that we get into it. Let's start with, main deck. Oh, it looks good. I can see it through the foam. Oh, it looks so good. You can see the cover, which is looking gorgeous and will look even better in the full print quality. We've got the back, and then we've got art on every side of the box. When you remove the sleeve cover, the final version will be able to fold all the way down. There won't be a joint here, so that's a note I'll have to send to the printer, so that this can lay flat across the table and you can use this as a play surface. All of them right there in their inset trays. I'm gonna do a quick draw, and for my region, grassland. For my landmark, spire or village. Grassland, and then I can choose between spire or village. I'm gonna go with a spire in the grassland. Namesake card of the moon, of guardians, hissing, which would go on top, and without fear. Kind of like the hissing grassland. To me, it's really, I love sound in writing, and I think that the idea of a hissing grassland, of like the way that the wind travels through these reeds or these grasses, creates almost a snake-like sound. I love that idea. It could be that the grassland is full of snakes, and that's why it's hissing. There's a lot of ways that you can kind of interpret it and run with it. Attribute card, I've got religiously diverse, carnivorous plants, seasonal flooding, known for street food, carnivorous plants. I'm already on a roll with the hissing grassland and maybe the way that the wind moves through these particular grasses. And I like the idea that they could be carnivorous grasses and that hiss almost takes on like a predatory nature, like the grass is hunting and eating people. Origin card. We've got was once decimated by plague, shaped by a terrible storm, site of a huge misunderstanding, and built with blood money. Shaped by a terrible storm. I think that's a really cool one for the spire. So maybe in the middle of this grassland, there's a giant spire that either used to be part of a larger mountain that got like cracked open during a storm. Advent card, the contents of an important archive are being held hostage, and that can be a library, a museum, or an art gallery, or stars are disappearing from the night sky. Oh, that's weird and creepy, and I love it. That can be due to pollution, an optical illusion, or something supernatural. I like the idea that it's due to light pollution, but it's natural light pollution. Oh, I love the idea that they've been, so they're carnivorous grasses, maybe they've been eating insects like fireflies or glowworms, and they're starting to take on these bioluminescent properties or to start to contain this bioluminescent compound that's making them glow like their food source. And the brighter the grass gets, the harder and harder it gets to see the stars at night because the grass is creating so much light that optically the stars just don't shine bright enough. I love that idea. I think that's creepy and strange and evocative, and there's a lot you can do with that. And that's a complete prompt. We have the hissing grassland. If you decide to go, be very careful. Make sure you bring a plant field guide with you, and hopefully you don't get eaten or lost because you can't navigate by starlight. Expansion time! What I think I'll do is a quick sort of flyby so you can see what the cards look like from each of the sets. All right, so here is horror. Fantasy. Science fiction. Coastlines. Ooh, that looks good. Deserts. Arctic. And now let's have some fun with the creative expansions. This is Shared Hearths and Common Creeds, the Culture Keyholes expansion, which is full of questions that are dedicated to really bringing out and unlocking larger truths about your world and the cultures that live there. Each have 4 questions printed on them, and I think I'm actually going to draw one of these right now and use it for the Hissing Grassland. What cultural significance do seasons have? Who are their rivals or enemies? Where do they keep their dead? What qualities do they look for in a potential mate? I have a feeling that especially if this place, its name, its nature is so tied to plant life is so tied to seasons and sunlight that there's gonna be a lot of cultural significance to the way that the people who live there understand the seasons. I like the idea that the grasses that make up the Hissing Grassland, these carnivorous grasses, really change with the seasons. Like maybe during winter, there's actually, strangely, an abundance of life because the carnivorous grass isn't eating all the insects. The insects have adapted to do their breeding in winter, to be more active in winter. So I like the idea that for some reason, winter is their busy season. Winter is when they get the most work done. Maybe summer is actually like really dangerously hot and the carnivorous grass is out there, which creates an issue. Things that we associate with winter, with, sort of coming inside and hibernating, those things they associate with summer. But in winter, when the grass goes dormant, that's when everyone goes out and does everything. That's when everyone goes out and lives their lives outside in fullness. And I really like the idea that this reverses the usual cultural associations with how seasons work. Oh, and if anybody wants a chance to try out the expansions, basically included with every backer tier, you get access to the expansion demo sampler, which is basically a few cards from each expansion so you can see what it's like to use them and how they combine with the main deck. So the Lore Fragments expansion is made up of 2 different kinds of cards. There are Flourish cards and Opus cards. Opus, these cards are basically what is the type of lore fragment, how does it exist in the world, what medium is it? So this can be, maybe it's a tavern song that you're going to be prompted to create, or it could be a local bylaw, or it could be a creation story. Flourish cards are optional embellishments that you can use to add a little bit more texture or challenge or in-world grit and perspective to your Opus card. Let's draw a couple here and create a little bit of lore for the Hissing Grassland. Okay, so we have write a local greeting. So this would be describing the way that 2 people might greet each other, even non-verbally, if there's a kind of handshake or salute that people use, or maybe they have a special way of saying hello to each other in this region. We also have describe or sketch a garment. And you'll notice that on every card, there's always at least one visual prompt, something that you can choose to describe with words or to render, whether you're drawing or sketching or sculpting, some kind of visual art representation, which again, you always have the option to write about instead. Write a salacious news story. So I could try and think of a scandal that might happen in the Hissing Grassland. Or describe or perform an annual tradition. Every single card also always has something that's a performance or theater or oral based. So something that you can perform if that's your jam. Otherwise, you can just describe it or write it as a script. I really like the idea of doing an annual tradition, especially because we're already thinking about seasons. We're already thinking about the changes that happen throughout a year. Maybe there is a tradition or a ritual for kicking off winter, which is again, their active period. Supplies have been running low. They haven't had a chance to go out and gather new food, or if they have gathered new food, it's harder or more dangerous to get. The idea that there's a big harvest, basically, a big harvest at the beginning of their winter, where they go out and they celebrate the plenty that they now have in contrast to the leaner months. For a tradition around that, oh, you know what? I think it'd be really cool if that's when they pick a bunch of this carnivorous grass, which has become inactive or it's no longer as dangerous. There's a big celebration where they use this grass for weaving baskets, creating fibers that they can create clothes and textiles from, collect a bunch of grass and turn it into a mulch or a paste that can be used as a flour or a building supply. I think it would be really cool if there was this big grass festival where they sort of celebrate being able to be safe in the grass again. So the Flourish card is going to add a little bit of texture or grit to that, and it's always optional, but I like to have it just to remind me about who created this tradition and what priorities might they have, and what might give it its own sort of specific flair or voice. By or involving someone selfish in a meandering style with malapropisms. And malapropisms are words that people get confused or they use a wrong word that sounds similar. In less than an hour. So you can interpret this 2 ways. One, as the tradition lasts less than an hour, or as you have 1 hour to create it. And this is just meant to give you a bit of a restriction or a challenge to work within that might help you change up some of the rhythms of how you create. I like in a meandering style. I imagine that when they are doing errands out in the grasses during the summer, when the grass is active, they have to be pretty quick, they have to be very alert, there's a survival element there. When winter starts and the grass goes inactive and it's less dangerous to them, they celebrate slow time. They celebrate doing things without having to rush, without being on alert the same way. So this would be the prompt that I would start creating with. And this could be, I think, a really cool scene or a moment that's embedded in a novel where you really see how the culture that's that you're writing about lives with the seasons and marks them. This could be a scene that your players in a role-playing game get to interact with, like they get to be part of going out into the field. And either way, it just adds that little bit more texture and realism to the world. Let's look at the Hero's Quests and Fool's Errands. These are adventure prompts that you can use to set adventures or set stories in your world. These can be used by writers who just want an idea of like what kind of plot hook or story might emerge from the setting that they've created. And it can also, I think they're especially helpful to be used in tabletop role-playing games because you can actually intersperse these tucked so that only the title of the quest shows. And you can tuck these in different regions in your world, and the players can see like, oh, that's an interesting sounding adventure. I'd like to try Where the Blow Lands, or I'd like to try Artifacts of War. Each of these cards can be customized multiple different ways. You'll see that there are always 3 sockets for attaching additional details to this quest. These are color-coded to match the cards in the original Story Engine deck so that you can furnish the details of this story by randomly drawing cards from the Story Engine and attaching them to the quest card once players have activated it and you move it from its original region to a side area where you have sort of a quest board or a quest menu. Also, if you don't have the Story Engine deck, or if you just would rather have this quest to be more directly integrated into your world, you can fill in those sockets by tying them to certain locations in your world. Sometimes the prompt that's creating the socket, where it's asking you to customize it, will help you create additional lore and characters and spaces in your world that give it more texture, because you'll want to create something that ties into this story and really integrates it. So, Artifacts of War. An ancient bomb has been discovered in or under an important cultural site. The local leader needs it diffused immediately. So the 3 sockets are, who is the local leader? And you could draw an agent card and an aspect card from the Story Engine deck to create that character, or I could decide, well, I'm gonna have it be the local leader of the people who live in the hissing grasslands. I could start to just use details from the world to decide who they are. So maybe they're a druid who's really tied to the seasons. They're the person who announces when it's safe to go out in the grass again. That's the decision that they make on behalf of the community. I kind of like that idea. It ties into what I've already been working on. So I'm going to go with the leader as a druid, and they're the one who's most in tune with the seasons. What is the cultural site that the bomb is under? I like the idea that it's the spire. The spire maybe is at the center of the grasslands, and it's an area that really can only be reached in winter when the grass is inactive. So that's the cultural site where it's really important to them because it's a space that really helps them celebrate those seasonal changes. Describe the device. What is the bomb device? Especially if the spire was sort of unearthed or it gained its shape during a storm. I like the idea that maybe the device was something that was tied to the weather. Maybe it was an ancient, oh, okay. So what if the device is like an ancient lightning rod that's meant to gather electricity and gather power over storms, and it was used as some kind of ancient battery in a time where there was technology that they no longer know how to maintain or understand. Over all this time, the battery's been loading with power and loading with power and overloading with power, and whatever it is that contains that excess power is starting to fail, and there could be this huge detonation or this huge discharge of all this power that's stored up over all these storms, and you would either have your hero, your main character in your storyline, have to go figure out how to understand this technology and defuse it, or you might send the adventuring party there, which good luck. Depends on how much you trust your adventuring party with heavy explosives and ancient technology. And that's all the cards. I am really, really excited about the quality of the playmats. So this is an example of the Story Engine playmat. It is 18 by 12 inches. It's about the thickness of like a thinner mouse pad, and it's got a nice soft material that really makes an easy surface for picking up and handling cards, and it just looks really pretty. The Deck of Worlds playmat, it can be a little bit tricky to handle those larger stacks of cards. Sometimes your micro setting is actually going to have up to 9 cards if it's a complex micro setting using just the main deck. You're gonna find that that stack gets a little bit hard to manage if it's on like a surface where you can't really get underneath it. So I would say that it's a little bit more helpful for Deck of Worlds. Storage boxes. So we have 4 different designs, 2 of which are themed to Deck of Worlds and 2 of which are themed to Story Engine, but you can put any card in any box. It's all the same dimensions. The first Deck of Worlds one, and these are the side walls that will fold up. each of these comes with a set of dividers. The designs on the dividers are the same for all four of these different prints, so it's always the same set of dividers. Each of them has a space at the top where you can write what you're putting in the slot. I decided not to pre-print the different icons and emblems on here, specifically because I wanted people to be able to create their own storage systems, whether you want to sort your cards by expansion or genre or card type. I wanted to keep that open-ended, and there will be a print sheet where you can print off more of these. All of them have some really nice, interesting, and evocative artwork on them. So that is everything that I have for you today for the Deck of Worlds digital quality print sample unboxing. Again, we are going to be going into even higher quality production when we go into the offset printing, but if this is the version that went to print, goodness gracious, it's beautiful. It is everything that I want it to be, and it would hit every single box that I wanted for this project. I'm just really, really excited to do this review, to get these printing into mass production, and then to get these into your hands. We're still looking at October as the most likely delivery date, which is the original date that we launched the Kickstarter with for physical copies. I'm hopeful that things could happen a little bit sooner. Definitely we have tons and tons of buffer as part of that October timeline in case things go wrong, and I like to assume things will go wrong because right now we're in a bit of a freight crisis. I will continue to update you as production goes forward. I cannot wait to get these in your hands and see what you do with them. One of my favorite things about creating these open-ended creative tools is just seeing how people pick them up and run with them. Thanks very much for sharing this moment with me and letting me share my excitement, and I can't wait to check in with you again when we have the next milestone to celebrate.